Good morning, happy Thursday, and welcome to another Exploring Cognitive Biases video. Today we are talking about the false uniqueness bias or false uniqueness effect. So thanks for tuning in. If you don't know what this series is all about, I'm not going to explain it again. Go and head to my YouTube channel and check out the introduction page, and you'll find out all you need to know there and a whole list of different biases that you can check out and find more about, because the better we understand how we think and understand ourselves, the happier our lives can be, right? So hello to everyone who's tuning in live, and a big shout out to everyone who's tuning in on the replay. Feel free to comment and ask me questions. Even if you're on the replay, I will get back to you. So false uniqueness bias, what is it? Well, it's a tendency to underestimate similarity and overestimate distinctiveness within peers or in relation to peers. What? Maybe I could explain that a bit better rather than using the fancy terminology. So basically, we think we're more unique than we are. That's it. So particularly, it's suggested that we're more likely to underestimate the number of people who agree with us on a desirable characteristic, and actually overestimate the consensus, the number of people that agree with us for a less desirable thing. So although it's called the unique or false uniqueness effect, sometimes it kind of swings the other way as well, which just makes it all the more fun and complicated and confusing to explain. So for example, if you smoke, if you're a smoker, then that would be something we generally consider to be an undesirable trait, and therefore you're likely to overestimate the number of people that agree with you or that smoke, for example. Yeah. So if you're a smoker or have a bad habit or something considered to be socially undesirable, you'll believe, or you're more inclined to believe that more people do it. Everyone does it. Loads of people do this. So I'm not that unique, and that's okay. Yeah. However, if it's the other way around, if it's something considered to be desirable or positive, generally, then it'll be the other way around. So I might be really physically active. I'm not. So, I might work out every day and play sports and do all of these things. And then I would be inclined to believe that I'm more unique in doing so, and that as a rule, the general population are more lazy than I am, or less physically active than me. So you tend to underestimate the consensus if it's a desirable thing. So I should probably point out, this is not the same bias as the false consensus bias. So that is a different bias. It sounds similar, but that's more about attributing one's own beliefs to others. So, for example, in a group situation, I think this, and therefore the rest of my group is likely to think this as well. So I don't know, I'm incredibly racist, but I think we all probably think the same way, for example. So there is a difference there between the two, although it feels like and seems like there's some overlap. They are different. And another similar bias is pluralistic ignorance. So that would be, for example, if you've got a group or a community where, let's say it's like a religious sect, and gambling is prohibited, playing cards and things like this, then it's likely that we would all assume that no one does that, because publicly no one admits to it. But then if we, behind closed doors, play cards anyway, or partake in this activity that is, shunned or not allowed, we're not going to tell anyone else that we're doing it. And no one else that's doing it is going to admit openly that they're doing it. So we all assume that no one else does it, but actually we do. But it's not that bias either. So those are two separate biases. I just wanted to mention them so that you could understand if there was any confusion or contradiction to some of my other bias videos in the past or future. So yeah, false uniqueness is all about overestimating your ability. That's pretty much what it comes down to. So is it really a bad thing to overestimate your ability? Well, no, not necessarily. So where does it come from? You know, the chances are it will be a socially devised construct and a way that we do things. So, you know, underestimating others, so assuming that we're better than others at the thing that is desirable and that we're good at, well, it boosts our self-worth. It makes us feel good. And I'm sure you've experienced at some point in your life, and if you've heard me talk about the importance and impact of positive language, you'll have heard example stories of this, where if we believe that we're going to be good at something, we're more likely to get a more positive result, right? So if you go into a situation thinking, yeah, I am really good at this, you're far more likely to get a good result from it than if you go into it thinking, oh, I'm not very good at this. So this bias will have played into making us better at stuff because we believe we're better at stuff, and we're more focused on ways that we can prove that and show that and make that more true. And of course, overestimating the number of people that agree or also partake in undesirable things leads to that kind of safety in numbers thing, doesn't it? If we assume that, oh yeah, I know I shouldn't do this, but everyone does it. If we believe that everyone does it, we feel safer in the fact that we're doing it. So Alison says, I guess thinking everyone does the undesirable things is a way of rationalizing it to yourself that it's okay and not a bad thing at all, really. Absolutely, Alison. Yeah, it's okay to do X because, hey, everyone does it, right? It's more likely to apply to less measurable things. That's not exclusive, but for example, people are far more likely to overestimate themselves as being a good person. Yes, morally, ethically, I'm a really good person. I would say I probably have better morals than most because, you know, most people will bend their morals at different points, but I'm morally superior. That's something that's very easy to believe. And it's probably a really common example, actually. And in some ways that's good because it kind of holds us to account to a higher standard. That can be useful, but it's amazing how good we are. Check out my video, Self-Serving Bias, to understand a bit more, but it's amazing how good we are at convincing ourselves that we can make this exception because we've got a good reason. But if someone else makes that exception, it's because they're a bad person or their morals aren't as strong. That's a whole other thing. So yeah, we're more likely to apply it to something like being a good person, something where maybe it's not quite so easy to exactly quantify it than we are something like intelligence. That being said, intelligence is actually probably quite a common one where people think that they're better than others and have this idea of uniqueness that may not be accurate. And Alison, you're spot on, whereas I'm special because I do X, Y, and Z, the good things. Exactly. So basically, it's all about overconfidence in ourselves and potentially looking down on others. But there's at least one flaw that I see within my own description there of how I've explained it. And this is something that actually, when you look through a lot of the studies and academic papers that have been done into this bias and the ideas around it, something I think they often miss, particularly when leaning on this desirable versus undesirable element of it. And that's, so a great example of this is something like depression, okay? If you're feeling depressed, then I think most people would describe that as an undesirable factor. So, as I said earlier, if you consider it undesirable, you're more likely to think that everyone else is the same and I'm not so unique. But it seems to work the other way round with depression, for example, because what we do is we look and we go, yeah, I know that other people have problems. I'm not pretending that I'm unique in having issues, but I don't think people understand just how bad I feel. I feel really bad right now. This depression is extreme, and no one's got it as bad as me. And it's not a rational, logical thought necessarily. We don't necessarily fully buy into and believe that, but it's certainly hard to break away from the idea of that in the moment when you're feeling it. And I think that's because, in part, when we're in that kind of negative state, actually, although we know logically that it's an undesirable trait, we see it almost as a desirable thing. You know, this depression is keeping us safe from going out into the real world. It becomes sometimes even a part of our identity. There's lots about that depression where you kind of almost want to compete to be better at being depressed than other people. And we know that that doesn't make sense. We know it's not logical, but it's definitely a thing that I've experienced, and I know other people have spoken about a lot, is that feeling of, yeah, but this is particularly bad, and almost wanting to wallow in it. That's okay, by the way. So yeah, that's basically the false uniqueness effect. It's about believing ourselves to be more unique than we actually really are in reality. And that's it for today. A nice, quick, and to the point one. If you've got any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments now, just before I say goodbye. And of course, do check out my other bias videos. And wherever you're watching this, I'd really appreciate if you could just head over to YouTube, check out the Mind Affinity channel on YouTube, and click the subscribe button. Get my subscriber numbers up, because once I hit 100, I can do a few more clever things with my channel. And at that point, I plan to put out a whole load of different content that will be exclusively available on YouTube rather than all of the other platforms. So if you're interested and you found this useful, please do head over there, and please share it as well, whether that's this video or through the YouTube link, wherever you're watching. Yeah, if you think other people will benefit from hearing this, please do share it about, and get in touch if there's any other things that you'd like me specifically to talk about. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Have an awesome day ahead, and I will see you all same time next week with a new cognitive bias video. Thanks for tuning in.